Hey everyone, I'm Andy.
And I'm Sean.
And this is the Commander's Brew.
This week, Zendikar Rising.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching the Commander's Brew here on YouTube. It's our big Zendikar Rising set review. If you like what you're seeing and you want to help us out, you know what you can do. Just hit subscribe. It's a major help. If you want to get involved directly, though, of course, you can always check out our Patreon, patreon.com/commandersbrew, and you can help donate. You can donate directly and help make the show yourself. Actually, literally, practically make the show with the money that you donate. You can also get involved in our Discord and help us brew the decks. So, I mean, it's just huge. It's a lot of fun. There's other perks as well. Go check it out. Patreon.com/commandersbrew. Listen, we're happy you're here. We're happy you're ready to go. Zendikar Rising set review. Let's get into it. So, let's start talking about these new mechanics first and foremost. Zendikar Rising has two brand new mechanics that we're working with and two returning. So let's talk about the first new mechanic.
This is the big one. This is modal dual-faced cards. They've printed cards on the front and the back before with Transform, with the Werewolves and Innistrad, that sort of thing. It's come up again since then a couple of times. But this is the new version. This time is these don't transform. You just choose a side and you play whichever side you want. The big draw now is that there are lands on one side and there are spells or creatures or enchantments. I haven't analyzed what they all are, but you choose as you play it and then you just make it what it is. The big talk is the fact that being a land or a spell is extremely flexible. Mm-hmm. And we can adjust our land counts. A couple of rule points on this, just for those wondering. The game considers the front side only everywhere until you play it. So if the back is a land but the front is a spell, you can't search it up for things that search for lands. The game only sees it as a spell. If it is on the battlefield as a land, that's a different story. If it's in the graveyard, same deal. It's only whatever's on the front. So just remember that for the rules. What else?
They're all lands on the back, right? In this
right.
set, this is the first time this type of cards has been made, and they're all lands on the back. Some are lands on the front and lands on the back, as you'll see, and then some are stuff like Ondu Inversion, which is like a sorcery that lets you destroy all non-land permanents. It's highly costed. It costs like 8, and then when you flip it over, it's Ondu Sky Ruins, and it's an enter the battlefield tapped land that only taps for white, and you're going to see that a lot. There's ones that enter the battlefield tapped always. There are a couple that you can pay, I think it's 3 life every time. You can pay 3 life and then they come in untapped. And then there's like the rare lands that come in to play untapped all the time.
So Andy, I love that you put Ondu Inversion, the destroy all non-land permanent spell, as sort of the example. The thing that I can't wrap my head around is at what point do we like these in a commander deck? Do we want this? Because I'm not going to replace Wrath of God with this. I'm not going to replace Fumigate with this. That's right. I don't think so, because this costs 8. Those cost 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Having so I might consider swapping out a Plains for it.
Right. Yeah.
But then I guess here's where I get confused, because if I have this. Like, I guess if this is your 6th land, you have 5 on the battlefield, you draw this. Do you play this as a 6th land?
This is what I was thinking. So specifically with Ondu Inversion too, because it's way more highly cost. Like, it's 8 mana, and a land, this type of land that comes into play tapped, you want to play that as early as possible.
Yeah.
This land is much worse when you get it as your 10th or 8th, 9th land drop, whatever it is, right? Because obviously then you want to be like laying down a land that's untapped and doing your thing. Same thing early too, really, but it's a little easier when it's your first land you play of the game, obviously. So yeah, 8 mana for this thing. It's so planar cleansing, which is what this is 6 mana. So this is 2 more. So, like, I think that this type of card gets better in Commander, where we're used to casting things for this type of mana, you know? And Whereas in regular, like more like competitive formats, 1v1 formats, this card is just never good. It's not good early as a land. It's not good early as a spell. It's not good mid-game as a land. It's not good mid-game as a spell. You can't cast it. And it's like barely good late game as a spell, or late game. Like it's only maybe good when you get that 8th, when you already have 8 lands, and but by then, like what's going on in the game. And that's 1v1. In Commander, I think it's a little bit better, because I think casting something like this, sometimes you need to wipe the board of everything, and 8 mana, sometimes you're happy to pay that.
So I haven't figured out how this works in the deck building process, right?
Yeah,
when you're brewing this
that's my
up,
question as well. Yeah.
Like so obviously, like, do you run this and planar cleansing? Does it replace a land? Is it an additional, like, what slot does it occupy when you brew?
Yeah, like, can you say run? Let's say there were 4 spells that were around the power level of something like Undo Inversion. Let's just say, like, I don't know if there are or not.
Power level is very subjective in
It's
a lot
true.
of, depending on how you
But let's
slice
say
it.
power level is not even the right term. It's more like utility.
Okay.
Is there like a utility, like I think there's like a 3 red one, and it's like a threaten effect. So like that's
Sure.
not good enough for Commander, definitely, right? But 6 white is, you can make an argument that that's okay, right? Like that's okay for Commander, because the games can go longer. We can't, like, we're ramping, more, whatever reasons you want to have for it.
Yeah, I mean, how much is route if you add
route
the
is
instant tax?
7, I think. Yeah, it's 5 and
7.
you add the 2. Yeah.
Yeah, so like route is also flexible. Route has 2 modes. This has 2 modes.
Yeah, it's comparable. So it's like, do you run, let's say there were like 4 or 5 of them, do you like run 2 less lands than you would in a normal deck, and then cut 3 spells and then put these 5 things in? Is that how it works? Like, because I think it's something like
really
that.
torn.
I don't know if it's a 1-for-1 replacement, like I can just take out 1 land and put this in. I think it's going to be like, if you want 2 of these spells, I think you could maybe cut a land and 1 spell and then kind of make it even. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where I'd start thinking about it.
I also, I can't help but compare them to the cycling lands.
Yes.
So if I draw a cycling land late, like Secluded Steep, I'm like, well, this won't, this is a land that comes into play tapped and taps for white, and that's all it does. Or I can cycle it for a white. So late game, I'm happy to draw that because I want to cycle it. Mm-hmm. Late game, I guess I'm happy to draw this. I can't cycle it, but I get to decide. It's like, well, do I think I'll need this coming up? Am I behind? What am I likely to? It's like, well, I guess I'll keep it. But again, it's tough because it's 8. Because if I don't have 8 lands, I gotta hope I draw lands as well. This is a tough game. This is a tough one to play. It changes Magic.
I agree. It really does. And it seems like I've listened to a couple other podcasts about it, not both Commander and non-Commander, and people are torn about it. And the comparison of the cycle lands does come up a lot. And I think the general agreement is that those are kind of better. Again, depending on the format we're talking about here. But
let's talk about Commander.
Yeah, let's talk about Commander only for sure. And I think that yeah, like it's, I don't know, like what's another one? Do we have another one here that we have?
We got another one coming up later, the regrowth variant.
Right. Okay, so why not just cut right to that then? That one is Balaged Recovery.
Sure.
Balaged Recovery is 2 and a green for a sorcery that says return target card from your graveyard to your hand. And
it's regrowth +1.
Yeah, it costs 1 mana more for regrowth, and on the back it's just comes into play tapped green producing land, not a forest, but yeah, comes into play tapped green land. So this card to me is a little bit better than, like, I think I would probably run this in most decks.
But the question is,
where I was interested in a regrowth.
Does this take the place of your regrowth? You've got a deck that has a regrowth in it. Do you replace regrowth with this, or do you replace a forest with this, or does this not make that deck?
Yeah, that's the question. Because here's the thing: if it's just replacing regrowth, just play regrowth.
So this
right?
doesn't replace regrowth then.
So this is what I'm thinking. So but does it replace a forest? I think is more like, okay, it's a worse forest.
Yeah.
And then but on the right time on some, you draw this in later in the game when you don't need land, you're happy to see this as opposed to a forest, right?
That planar cleansing variant is a tricky one because of how much it costs. But exactly. Regrowth and Wrath, those are later game cards.
True.
Like, I don't want either of those while I'm developing.
There is one. You know what? There is one that's 1 and a green, and it's a mana dork. It taps for 1. That one I was like, that's interesting because, like, and on the back it's a come into play tap green land. Same thing. That is a ramp spell on turn 2. And then later, you're never casting that as a creature, basically.
Right. But then, this is where it gets so tough.
Man, it's tough.
My inclination is that I want the ones that are good spells later in the game.
Yeah.
I don't want to like those cycling lands. Early game, I love it if I have one in my opening hand because I'm probably not going to do anything on turn 1. Mm-hmm. Even if I have a Soul Ring, I'm probably going to delay playing that for a turn or two just to not get the immediate hate. So I love playing my cycling lands on turn 1. I would be fine playing this on turn 1 if that was my option, but I would rather get it late and cast the regrowth, and in that case, I'd rather just have regrowth. This is tough. I don't know how to get the data. Like, we play so few games of Commander. Like, I'm not gonna be able to play 100 games.
So like you said, it's like if this is in your opening hand, I think you just treat it as a land, especially if it's like one of 3 lands you have in your opening hand or something.
Well, I think that depends the rest of your opening hand.
That's what I mean. Is like if you only had 3 lands. And let's say you had like Cultivate in there. I think you're definitely using this for the land side at that point, right? Because there you go. Bam, it got you there. You play this turn 1, and then we're off to the races.
I don't know. The picture you paint makes me want to hold it because that Cultivate will ramp me. So I don't need... Like I would rather save this as a regrowth.
So you could... Let's say you also had a 2-mana play you wanted to play. You might not, right. Obviously, but like I think I would lean towards playing it as a land if it was in my opening hand, unless like you're saying I had a lot of land in there, and then in this case, great. But isn't that all upside though? Or isn't what we're talking about? Isn't it all like bonus?
Yes, it is. It is only bonus if a card can be a land or a spell. I just don't know where they go. Like you can't put 101 cards in. You got to cut something, and I can't figure out. Do I cut the regrowth? Do I cut a forest? Like something's got to get cut for this.
Yeah.
Or do I skip it entirely because it's too hard?
It's tough. It's tough to decide, man. It really is.
Well, let's move on.
We got to move on. We've already spent a lot of time talking about the very first thing on the docket,
and that's fair. That's fair. It's fundamentally changes Magic in a big way.
Yeah, and I think that one thing we can agree on as we kind of leave this new mechanic is that it is good. There's nothing bad about this. Maybe it's a slightly worse regrowth, but you are getting that bonus of the land on the back. So like. It's just a matter of, like Sean's saying, like ratios. It's a matter of like, what does this replace? Does it replace lands? Does it replace the actual spell that it's replacing? And I think like that's what we're going to have to tinker with and replace. And I'm sure there are pro Magic players who like just know the answer based on game theory and all that kind of stuff or whatever it is. But to me, it's like, I like I said, I think I'm going to try and come at it from like adding it as I think it like replaces a land.
That's my first
needle
instinct.
The needle leans towards replacing a land, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah, but not maybe not a perfect 1-for-1 switch.
But I don't want to get to the point where I have no basics left.
No, of course.
Like I could put in all the blue ones, all the green ones, and I have no basics left. It's like, well now my Cultivates are dead. Now my Terramorphic's dead.
Well, these are tap lands anyway, so like you also can't be running like a million gates and gain lands and hardly any basics in these because you need some untapped lands. Like I know that we're big proponents of the gates and playing budget land bases, but like it is still sweet to play a basic land on turn 5 and like double spell or play your 5-drop. You know what I mean? Like you still need to be able to do that once in a while. So
our world just got much more confusing.
I think we're going to see these pop up a lot in Commander. This is an uncommon, also Balaged Recovery. The other one, Undo, whatever it is, I think is a rare though. Yeah, on-do inversions are rare. So, I mean, I don't think these cards are going to be super expensive. Certainly not the uncommon. So, I think we're going to see them in Commander, and I think they're going to be pretty good. We'll figure out the ratio. We'll figure out where we want to play them and stuff.
So, Andy, do you like to party?
Oh, baby. Do I ever. Yeah, this party mechanic. I don't know how much I like to party in Commander, but we'll see. So the party mechanic is a new thing, really tying us ever closer into Dungeons and Dragons, of course. It's kind of like a weird version of Tribal, where we're going to care about our creature types. And it's going to often be about like how many members of your party you have. And they're going to say, well, if you have been under a rock and you haven't seen any Zendikar stuff, you're going to be like, what's a party? Otherwise, you may have already heard about this. But what it is basically a full party, as far as Magic is concerned now, is having on the battlefield a creature that is a rogue, a creature that is a warrior, a creature that is a cleric, and a creature that is a wizard. So that is what a party consists of. Your party can be less than that. You can have a cleric and a rogue, for example, and that's still a party. It's just not a full party. And then you're going to see a ton of cards in this set that ask you, how many members of your party are there, and you will get some kind of mana reduction or something, Ardent Electromancer is an interesting one. I thought this one, is, there's possibly some commander implications with a card like this where it creates a mana. It's like 2 and a red, a 3/2 human wizard. And when it enters the battlefield, you add red for each creature in your party. So, and again, you need
she's a wizard. Yeah. So at minimum, you get that 1 red back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a 2 mana spell.
Yeah, as long as you can do something with the mana, of course.
That's right. That's right.
And if you already have the other, if you have the other 3 kicking for you, then she's going to create a mana for you. Just be a free spell, which is cool. And if you can blink her and stuff like that, that's interesting. But yeah, the party mechanic is what we're looking at here, and I think that from this review, and I think that most Commander players are going to have to look at it from the perspective of, let's not really consider the deck where we are trying our hardest to get our party together, because obviously these cards are going to go in that deck and these cards are going to be good in that deck. That's same thing. It's a tribal card is obviously a tribal card. We know what's up, but let's take a look at it and see how well it performs when we're not trying specifically super hard to try and get these things, right? So if something happens in it, and even having 1 member of a party is good, well, that card might be good for Commander in general, because it's not too hard to have one of a cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard. There's warriors everywhere. There's wizards in lots of different colors. So there's good representation of these creature types all across Magic's colors. So yeah, we'll see.
I think if your commander is one of those, that's important to look at too. Looking through the set though, there aren't that many that care about a party that would make the average commander deck.
Agreed, yeah.
Okay, and Great. There's a couple that came back. Kicker's back. Kicker is an additional cost that you can cast to play a spell. The example we have here is Bloodchief's Thirst. It costs a single black and it's a sorcery, and you get to destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 2 or less. Useful if they're little utility creatures, mana dorks. However, if you kick it by paying an additional 2 and black, so that makes it 2 black sorcery. If the spell was kicked, instead destroy target creature or planeswalker. So it's a full destroy anything. In Commander, that's quite overcosted. It's probably not great for Commander, but it's a great example of Kicker. And from a rules point of view, this is an additional cost. So if anything let you play this spell for free without paying its mana cost, you are allowed to add the additional cost to get the additional effect. But that part you have to pay for.
Exactly, yeah. If something's granting it for, letting you play for free, like you said, you still have to pay for the kicker cost.
Yeah.
And again, this is a returning mechanic. Another returning mechanic we have here is our classic. Where is it? Here we go. Akoum Hellhound has Landfall. This is a very simple example of it. It's just a single red for an 0/1 that says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Akoum Hellhound gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Very, very simple mechanic. There it is. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, it's going to trigger an ability, and we're going to see a bunch of different ones that do that. This is such a classic ability in Magic. There's a lot of really awesome and fun creatures. You can build entire decks around landfall, largely centered in the red and green colors, but you'll see it through all the colors because it's a real Zendikar thing.
Yeah, commander decks have a tendency to put lots of lands out in a short amount of time. So any set that brings back landfall, we're going to keep an eye open for cool cards to support those decks.
Of course. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start talking the legendaries, the new commanders that we get to build around and build with. This is great. Sean, let's kick it off here.
Ooh, they gave us a 5-color one. Tazri's back. Beacon of Unity. She is 4 and a white. Legendary human warrior, 4/6. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. Okay. So,
this looks like it's the party commander.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
But just wait. So then she's 5 colors because she's got 4 different colored mana symbols in her activated ability. So you can pay blue, black, red, or green, or you can pay 2 colorless to replace any one of those colors.
Right. Yeah.
So if you're short of green, you can pay blue, black, red, and then 2 of anything else to make up for it. Generic mana. So here's what you do when you activate that ability. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard, and or ally cards from among them and put them into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. What an excellent way.
Love it.
To take a otherwise, I mean, this is not completely parasitic because there has been clerics, rogues, warriors, and wizards throughout the history of Magic cards, but there hasn't been party mechanic before. But Tazri is an ally commander. Well, now this works for allies. This can still be an ally commander. I'm not sure why you wouldn't go with the other Tazri for the ally commander, because that deck is off the hook. But this one, I mean, I'm really thankful that they decided to include allies, even though she's not an ally in this.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, really cool. Reaches back to the old Zendikar sets.
Yeah.
And it's like it's kind of Golos-esque, right? In the in like the kind of pay the mana cost and get some cards out. You only get them in your hand. You don't get them on the battlefield or anything. But I think that's still pretty good. And I think, if you build your mana base well enough, your 5-color base, like that's a 4-color draw 2, essentially, right? Top 6 cards, you're likely to hit 2, I think. Obviously, we're building around those creature types. So I bet you I think the numbers are pretty good there, depending on your creature count. So yeah, I like this card. I think often the best part about Tazri is that she's going to be like a 2-mana 4/6 that has this cool, draw a couple of party members additional ability. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Love it. Next is Omnath. Omnath has added yet another color, and we got a new one. So Omnath, Locus of Creation. Omnath added some white in there. Now Omnath is all about creation. Red, green, white, blue for the legendary elemental. When Omnath enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Pretty good. And then it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life if this is the first time this ability has resolved this turn. If it's the second time, you add red, green, white, blue. If it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. So landfall deck. Yes, please. Yes, all right. Explosive vegetation. I'm in. That's great. Any of the things that let you play extra lands from your hand. Awesome.
Right. The second one's the most interesting one. Getting extra mana back.
Yeah.
So you can play, you can pay 4 mana for an explosive vegetation and get 4 mana back and play something else. So it's kind of free. That's exciting.
That's cool. That's very cool.
What's the nickname?
I like that the third ability isn't crazy broken. You know what I mean? It's just 4 damage to each opponent. It's a lot of damage, but then you can't keep doing it. I actually kind of like that. So
I do too. 3 lands is hard.
It is.
2 is easy. 3 gets tricky.
Yeah, Harrow is 2 lands, so that's a nice low costed spell that's going to get you 2 lands. You might be able to go Omnath into Harrow into some other stuff. Like that's kind of fun.
Yeah, you get your free land drop every turn, plus any of those 2 mana ramp spells, but there's only a handful of those. Like, you gotta work pretty hard to do a consistent 3.
Yeah, well, no, like, okay, well, think about this. You could go, like, play a land.
Yeah.
Then Harrow.
Explosive Vegetation. Yeah, that's your 3.
There's your 3 right there.
Right, so if there's Harrow, Explosive Vegetation, those 2 other ones,
Circuitous
that gate
Root.
1. Right, but that beyond that, like, how many? I'm running a lot of like 1 extra mana, so it's like it ends up being 2 a lot of time. Again, 2's my favorite one. I don't know if I'm gonna run this over Angry Omnath or Wet Omnath. I don't know what this one's nickname
what
is
do you
yet.
call this one? I don't even know. Holy Omnath? I don't know.
Bright Omnath.
Bright Omnath is kind of good. I like that. But yeah, I like this. I love this as a commander, and I think it's right on theme. It's where you want to be. It's different enough, I think, from the other Omnaths too. That makes it cool and fun. And now we can finally have our all Omnath commander game.
No, we have to eventually get 5-color Omnath.
Like and it's going to be when Omnath dies, right?
Oh yeah.
Black is going to come in, and that's it.
Omnath has no more arms though. What part of Omnath is going to turn black?
His heart.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to stay that his feet were blue.
Oh yeah.
Arms red and white, and like his head is white, body's green, and then like you see this like black thing coming in from the middle of him. That would have been cool.
That's cool.
Anyways, let's move on. We love Omnath. Great stuff.
Yes.
Happy to see him again.
Next up, we've got a string of monocolor commanders. They were very good. Like they printed a monocolor of every color. No, not a white one. Sorry, white cards.
I guess Tazri's kind of the white one, maybe.
I guess so. Yeah, Tazri counts.
Yeah.
And then we've got a 2-color legendary in every color pair. So that's pretty neat. So the mono blue one is Charix, the Raging Isle, 2 blue, legendary Leviathan Crab, 0/17.
I love it.
Spells your opponents cast that target Charix cost 2 more. And Charix has an activated ability of 3. Charix gets +X -X until end of turn, where X is the number of islands you control. I mean, if you're mono blue, you're running most lands. So, but like, how many are you gonna have? Like 8, 9? It's gonna get. I think Charix is going to shine in like what's his name? Oh, that tree where everyone fights with their butts. Everyone does damage equal to their toughness.
That tree is Doran.
Oh, the tree doesn't have Doran doesn't have blue.
But there's probably Arcades, right?
Arcades. This goes in Arcades. That's where this belongs.
I like it because you can activate that ability more than once. The 3.
Oh, that's true.
You can do that a couple of times, and 17 toughness that's a lot. It doesn't take much to make this a kill if this is your commander. Like mono blue Voltron looks pretty good here.
True.
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I kind of like it's a new and interesting thing. It's an interesting like ability and have the craziest toughness I've ever seen.
Right. Move over, Tree of Redemption.
Yeah, move over, right? Is this the biggest now? Is this the biggest toughness? Cool.
Yeah.
Right, because that was the 13. Right. All right, next in the monocolored is Drana, the last Bloodchief. 3 black, legendary vampire cleric, 4/4 flying. Whenever Drana, the last Bloodchief, attacks, defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard. You return that card to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. That creature is a vampire in addition to its other types. So your opponent gets to pick, but you know, if you don't give them much of a choice, they have to pick something, right? So like, I like the idea of like, this is a madness style commander where we're discarding our own stuff. So, you know, maybe there's something where you discard before you attack with Drana, and then you just go, and then they have to return your giant creature that has an awesome ETB ability or something like that, right? That'd be cool.
Yeah, even if you were to put together a Drana deck and you were to engineer it so every creature, even if it's cheap, is like really useful. Like maybe each creature has an ability that can dip back into the graveyard as well. Drana can really it's hard to keep that graveyard empty with Drana. I like that the ability is on attack too. Like it's not ETB. It's on attack, but doesn't have to do combat damage. It's just turn her sideways and you get a creature back.
Agreed. I think that's cool. Yeah, I like it. I like it in the 99 of some reanimator decks too. Why not? Like just a little bit of basically free reanimation every time you attack. That's sweet.
Yep.
What's next?
Ooh, this one. So like this looks like a way you could mispronounce my last name. Taborax, Taborax, Hope's Demise. The card's fine. I just like it because it reminds me of my last name. It's a 2/2 flying, has lifelink as long as it has 5 or more +1/+1 counters on it. And whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And if that creature was a cleric, you may draw a card. If you do, lose 1 life. A lot of stuff going on. Requires a lot of work. Black has access to a ton of creatures that when your creatures die, you draw cards. This one often won't draw a card, so I don't think I'm going to run this in a lot of 99s where I wouldn't just run Grim Haruspex.
Yeah, this feels like Cleric Tribal only.
Kinda.
Next, we have Moraug, Fury of Akoum. 4 red, Legendary Minotaur Warrior. It's a 6/6. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it has attacked this turn. I'll tell you, I was very confused the first time I read that. I was like, wait, what? What are you talking about? You can only attack once. Aha. But has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control.
Andy, this is an insult to the color red because red can't do that. So like to make a possible commander where you're not allowed to run any other color in your deck, there's so few artifact ways by putting an extra land in. like you know how badly I want to like just like play another land. It's like you don't get to do that. You get like, I mean, maybe I shouldn't complain. 2 combat steps a turn is pretty good.
Pretty sweet, yeah.
But it's aggravating when they do that. Where like, if this was green, I would. But
it would be too good if it was green. Like I was reading this, just being like, oh my god. If I just like we're talking about casting like Explosive Vegetation or Harrow or something like that. Like that's stupid. Now I get 3 combats. Like it might as well just be infinite. So actually this one I'm like, you know what? It's probably better they kept it to red. So now you have to work harder to get it to work if it's your commander. And otherwise it just goes in the 99 of some other, some kind of Gruul deck that cares about this.
I am determined to figure out a way to get Wayfarer's Bauble to make that extra land drop and have
Simulacrum,
some sort of artifact creature to bring it back, and I can keep doing that. I'm gonna need to get mana with Neheb to keep sacking it. Like I'm gonna do it.
There's a way to do it. Of course there is. And you know what? I think you just might have spoiled episode 264. But obviously this creature is incredible. This is a very good effect. Very sought after effect. Even if this isn't your commander, you just play this guy on turn 7, whatever turn you can do this on. Play him and then play a land. And bam, there you go. Now you have this ability, and like they haven't printed, like they don't print this type of ability super often. It's almost always mythic, it seems, because it's really breaking one of the fundamental rules. So I'm always happy to see it, and I love it being on landfall. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's an awesome card.
This card's going to be expensive, right? Like it's
already like $15.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're going to go into the 2 color commanders now. We're not going to spend a ton of time on each of them. Overall, we looked at them. None of them are especially unique or like, oh man, we've never seen a Golgari commander do this before. They're all fine. They're probably great in part of the 99 and a lot of decks that could run them if they're in that kind of theme. But we'll just touch on all of them super briefly, starting with Linvala, Shield of Seagate. This is the Azorius one, 1 white blue. Legendary Angel Wizard 3/3 flying. The first part is party related, and I don't think that's why you would want to run her. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, not that likely unless you build towards it, but I wonder why you're doing that. Choose target non-land permanent and opponent controls. Until your next turn, it can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. Fine. But this is the part that I think makes Linvala interesting outside of party. Sacrifice Linvala, choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn. I'm happy to have that on the battlefield as another way to protect my team in the 99 of an Azorius or more color deck.
I think this is a bit. I mean, I don't know the story of what's gone on Zendikar since we've last been there or anything. But how did Linvala become a wizard? Like,
Ooh.
she doesn't even look like a wizard. Even in, like, she's holding a shield and like a big staff. It's like, okay, you still look a bit like someone who's ready to fight someone. You know, you're not.
Yeah.
It doesn't really look like you're about to cast a bunch of spells. And she was never a wizard before. She was just an angel. I mean, I'm sure there's a story reason for it, but like, still, I don't know. It feels like off. The flavor of this feels off and just kind of wedged on because of the party stuff.
Yeah.
And that being said, I don't know. I mean, it's a fine creature to do, like, to have that ability, but whatever. I'm not super excited by Linvala. Next we have Zagras, Thief of Heartbeats. 4 black-red for the 4/4 legendary vampire rogue. This spell costs 1 less for each creature in your party. Flying, Death Touch, Haste. Other creatures you control have Death Touch. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. I think Zagras is cool. The party stuff is like pure bonus. You don't have to build towards it. If you do lean towards having a few extra rogues and, whatever, clerics or wizards or whatever it is you want, if you lean towards having a few extra of those and you're building, like, I don't know, Death Touch Tribal, like this, I think this guy could be a pretty cool commander. You get a little bit of cost reduction. You get a little bit of giving everything Death Touch, which has got to be pretty good, right? Pingers and stuff like that. Like, I think there's a real deck here. And the killing planeswalkers thing is just bonus, but I mean, it's nice. You know, if we can sneak.
It's probably how Death Touch should have worked from the beginning.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. So I actually really like this guy, and I kind of didn't until I just read it now. I was like, oh, big deal. And now I'm like, actually, wait, this guy's pretty good.
Okay.
Anyways.
We've got a new Dimir commander, Zareth Sand the Trickster, 3 blue-black, legendary merfolk rogue, 4/4 with flash. I like when a commander has flash. I'll just say that right now. Having a commander with flash is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So 2 black-blue, return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand. Put Zareth Sand the Trickster from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. It's tough to get your commander back in your hand. That's the one part I don't like about this. Whenever Zareth Sand deals...
I didn't even realize that. It's from your hand. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Whenever Zareth Sand deals combat damage to a player, you may put target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Now, that's the good part. That's what I want. I can flash. So again, we're seeing a lot of themes where it's like the party first part kind of doesn't matter. Like, I don't care about that much in Commander, but that second part, that's kind of appealing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. And I would imagine you would have enough options in blue to be able to bounce this back to your hand if for some reason
maybe
you wanted to protect it and stuff like that. Because just getting it onto the battlefield seems good enough. And then the version of protection that you would use with Zareth Sand is the bounce it back to your hand stuff, right? Because then it's like, oh, great. Well, now I can get it out there for cheap every time. Next, we have I keep pushing the wrong button here. It's like I've never done this before. We have our Gruul commander. It's Phylath, World Sculptor, and it's a 5/5 legendary elemental. When Phylath, World Sculptor, enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each basic land you control. So that's only basic. And obviously, we're already pretty reminiscent of Avenger Zendikar. And it also has landfall, like Avenger. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put 4 +1/+1 counters on target plant you control. So you get to make a bunch of plants, but then you only get to build them up sort of one at a time with the landfall. Pretty similar to Avenger Zendikar, and I think, if you wanted that as a commander, this is the closest thing you're ever going to get, and it's pretty sweet. I don't hate it,
I'm skeptical. Like, how often, like, I don't, like, the number of basics is usually pretty low.
That's true. But if this is your commander, obviously you're building with more basics in mind.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a 2-color deck. Like you're not hurting yourself that much by including a ton of basics. Like you're pretty okay with that. And otherwise,
it's hard.
I really like this guy, even just as like a 6-mana 5/5 that has this cool landfall ability for the even, let's say, 2 or 3 plants that it makes. Like you could include this in some Jund decks. That would be pretty sweet. And any landfall deck is probably okay with it if it's 2 colors.
Yeah. Maybe better as a 99 then.
I like that it's an elemental for Angry Omnath.
True. That's nice. I'm having a hard time not comparing this to Avenger of Zendikar, and it's so inferior on every angle.
It is. It really is. And it's 2 colors.
Yeah.
But as a commander, that's a good thing, right?
Right.
You want to be able to access those other colors. So yeah, I mean, I like it. It's not much like all of these. We said before we started recording that they're pretty simple. They're not really super flashy. And that's one of the things that makes me like them a lot. They kind of remind me of like older commanders.
It's gonna be nice, like, you know, I hope this isn't too dismissive, but like as newer commander players come in, these are perfect to like expose newer players to commander because they don't require like super complex strategies. It's almost to the point where like I almost wish it's like, are these just better? Like 100 cards is too much now. Like these would be great in like 60 card decks or something.
Talking about
like
Brawl. These would be good
I guess so. I guess they're sort of made for a Brawl maybe, which wouldn't surprise me.
No.
So let's move on to Yasharn, Implacable Earth. This is the Selesnya 2 green white elemental boar 4/4. When Yasharn enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest and a basic plains, reveal them, put them in your hand, and then shuffle. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. This has a very powerful presence on the commander battlefield. A lot of decks want to do that, and so you could shut down entire decks with this. That's not my playstyle. I wouldn't build this as a commander, but it's powerful.
When it enters the battlefield, search your library for basic forests and a basic plains. Put them in your hand. Okay. So, yeah. It's 2 decent little abilities, right? Grab 2 lands, put them in your hand, and getting to shut that off. And I'm with you, like that's not really my style either. Because what it does is if you are playing against a deck that wants to sacrifice things, they're just gonna only come at you, and or they don't get to play the game for a while, which sucks. So
not my style.
Yeah, I don't love it. Hate bears are fine and other things, but I'm personally in a casual game, I don't think it's a super fun strategy. Okay, Aura is next. Aura, Skyclave Hierophant, 2 white black, 3/3, legendary core cleric, lifelink. When Aura or another cleric you control dies, return target cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from your graveyard to the battlefield. Obviously, we're talking about cleric tribal here, and I like this ability. It's what's the artifact that has this kind of similar ability? Do you remember? It's from like Kaladesh or something, but it allows for a bunch of like degenerate combos, basically. Not necessarily infinite because of the way the ability works out. It needs to be less mana cost, so it has to keep going down every time. But I think it's cool. I think if I was to build a new cleric deck, this would be the commander of it.
I didn't do a search yet, but I can't think of, off the top of my head, any great clerics that I really want to ETB or that I'm really interested in getting out there. Limiting it to cleric, like I think that's a thin creature type when you go back before this set.
Okay, well, let me take a quick peek. Okay, well, Academy Rector is a cleric. That's obviously a classic, but very, very expensive.
Yes.
You've got some other things. Thank you, Sarah, for bringing me a drink. Arena Rector is also a cleric, I guess.
Sure, Tashar.
Yeah.
Okay, they're out there.
I mean, they're out there. Ailey is a cleric, but then we're talking more like what's it called? Like just value. I mean, Banisher Priest is a cleric. Basri's Acolyte. These are some ETB abilities that are okay. They're not like broken abilities or anything, though, right? Like we're not winning the game with these things. But I think there's enough there that it's you got an aristocrat style deck. You're sacrificing. You're getting value from that, and then you're also going to have some of these cleric synergies. I think I'm interested. I'm interested.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's move on to the commander Kaza Royal Chaser, blue-red, legendary human wizard, 1/2 flying haste. And they have a tap ability. The next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn cost X less, where X is the number of wizards you control as this ability resolves. So that's the fact that you have to tap. It's so tough because we already have Goblin Electromancer who costs exactly the same and has better stats. Granted, no flying, no haste. The haste allows you to tap as you like the first turn you have Kaza out, so that's nice.
That's nice.
If you have Goblin Electromancer plus Kaza, Goblin does 1, is a wizard. Kaza counters themselves, so that's like a discount of 3. That's not bad. I think it's fine. If you're a really spelly deck, I'm happy to put Kaza in the 99.
What's a better... Like, if for this type of deck, let's say if we had a wizard deck where we want to be casting spells and getting their cost reduced, this looks like it's the best commander.
Well, it's Mizzix for sure is going to be your best spell reduction commander.
Course. Right,
the one that's like largely broken.
Yes,
so even outside of that, like I feel like if you just want to cast a ton of instants and sorceries, the fact that Kaza taps, I'd almost rather have Goblin Electromancer to just get that 1 discount every time rather than an occasional bigger discount. I'm really having a hard time seeing a world where you build a deck that isn't hurt by putting in 10 more wizards that don't support your game plan besides being wizards. So like I don't, maybe that exists, but so I'm not expecting to have 8 wizards on the battlefield. So I'm expecting a discount of 2, 3 at most.
What happens when we start untapping this guy though, Kaza?
Well, okay, so the trick, the way, because it only works on your next spell, so you can't untap.
Can I tap him? Let's say we've got 3 wizards. Pay a single red to do some 4-mana spell, then untap them, let's say, and then tap them again, and then it's the next one again, right? Like that, I can keep going like that.
I mean,
and also similarly, can I go tap? Okay, put like 3 wizards, untap, tap 3 wizards. Now the next one is 6 less.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're talking.
But how are you doing? Like what? Like that's 9 cards. It's taken you 9 cards to get to this.
That's
point.
for the deck brewers to figure out, man. That's not my job.
The way to do it is so you can cast a spell that untaps Kaza while Kaza is untapped. When that spell is on the stack waiting to untap Kaza, you tap Kaza to use the ability. The spell resolves, you untap Kaza, then you tap Kaza again. So you haven't cast your next spell yet. But if you can't use a spell to untap her that isn't an instant, untap them, because otherwise that's the next spell you cast.
Yeah, I guess we don't know the gender of Kaza.
We don't even know what gender they'd like us to use, even if we thought we did.
It's true. I think it's cool though. I think it's interesting. I think if Mizzix being too much for you right now at like $8-9, which is sure that's a lot of money. If you wanted to get a budget version, it seems like Kaza might be that version. I'm interested. Yeah. I'm interested in untapping Kaza and getting a very big reduction.
Sure.
On a spell. I'm interested in that. Okay, next is the Golgari. It's Grakmaw. I love the name. Sounds like a transformer. Grakmaw, like the dinosaur transformer.
Yeah.
Grakmaw, Skyclave Ravager. 1 black-green for a 0/0. Legendary Hydra Horror. Grakmaw enters the battlefield with 3+1/+1 counters on it. Whenever another creature you control dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, put a +1/+1 counter on Grakmaw. When Grakmaw dies, create an XX black and green Hydra creature token where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Grakmaw. So this is the one that kind of stood out for me as like, this is even though there's like a lot of text here, it's pretty simple what's happening, right? We get a 3/3. If something dies with a +1/+1 counter on it, toss one over on Grakmaw, and then when it dies, we get another Grakmaw essentially, but without the counters. I love this for our Zeros to Heroes deck. The Nethroi, all of our creatures have 0/0 in our graveyard and stuff like that. I think it's a fantastic card for that, and I will be building that deck, and I will be putting Grakmaw in there. But yeah, I mean, otherwise it's an interesting, slightly different interaction with +1/+1 counters and Hydras. So if you want to get a little more specific with what your Hydras are doing, I think it's kind of interesting.
I think Grakmaw is like most of these commanders. I think they are better suited in the 99 of a deck that's already doing +1/+1 counter stuff. I'm not inspired to brew around Grakmaw personally.
Yeah, I basically agree. I just like that we're seeing the simplicity come back.
We've got another Akiri, Fearless Voyager.
Man, did you see the trailer?
Yes.
For Zendikar Rising?
Yes.
Did you know right away it was Akiri?
No, I didn't.
When she swung on the rope, I was like, ooh, is that Akiri Line Swinger or whatever she's called?
Line Slinger,
turns out I was right. Yeah. Anyways.
I mean, she's flying solo now. No more partner.
She's dead. Also. Anyways.
Well, I mean... But even if you're playing this card, we're assuming she's still alive. So
that's true. We're in the period where she's still alive. But yes. Yeah, you're right. No partner here.
No partner. 1 red, white, 3/3 core warrior. Whenever you attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, draw a card. It's Boros. It's a Boros commander that has draw a card on it. That's excellent. You can pay a white. You may unattach an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature and it gains indestructible until end of turn. I guess the idea is you can fearlessly enter combat with a bunch of equipped creatures, and if any of them seem like they're going to die, you can just pay a white and unattach the equipment. You can also unattach in response to a board wipe. That's great too. Not sure why you got to tap them. I don't see why you have to punish people with vigilance. Like, well, let me have my vigilance.
Don't you know Boros is far too strong? We must rein them in.
Yeah.
My thing is, and I'm sure it's probably from like a constructed, it's from like a standard perspective or whatever, but this would be so much better if when you attack a player, you draw a card for each creature that's equipped instead of 1 or more. You know what I mean? Like would it be so bad if there was a deck where it's like, okay, I've suited up 3 or 4 creatures with equipment, and I get to attack with all of them, and they all draw, and I draw 4 cards. Like, that's not that far off from something like Coastal Piracy or, Biden of Thassa, right? Like, blue, and I get it, blue gets to draw cards easier. I understand, but I do appreciate that this is tossing Boros and the equipment deck of bone, so I like it a lot. I just wish it was a little bit better. For Commander, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
This is the last one, right? Verazol, which is not a cleaning product, but Verazol, the Split Current, X green blue for a 0/0 Serpent, legendary, of course. Verazol enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each mana spent to cast it. Now, maybe this should have been a Hydra. I don't know. Whenever you cast a kicked spell, you may remove 2 +1/+1 counters from Verazol. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Interesting. I like this new, I don't really think we've seen anything like it where it's a card that interacts with counters and spells. Like, it cares about, it's like a spell-based deck that is also now going to care about counters. That's cool.
Yeah. I haven't looked. How many commander playable kicker cards are there in green and blue?
Yeah. I you know what? I don't know. I don't
Into the Royal and the equivalent
Into the Royal
Blink of an Eye.
the one that makes a bunch of copies of things that like it's
Oh, Right of Replication?
Right of Replication, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to be leaning on kicker for this, right? I think it's going to be oh, no, sorry. That's not what I meant to say. I think you like you have like these big payoff kicker spells if we can find any. and we add +1/+1 counters as the game like goes on. I wonder if there's any kicker +1/+1 counter spells.
I'm looking. Yeah, there's like one or two that like if you kick it, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on your team instead of just one.
Yeah. So, yeah, Right of Replication seems crazy.
Yeah.
If I kicked it, I get to copy the kicked version, right?
It's true. Yeah, you will copy it kicked. That's really the one.
Yeah, I'm looking up just the blue ones, and oddly enough, there's a lot of creatures.
Yeah, I'm only looking up sorceries, and now I'm gonna look up instants. There's a couple of token makers, a couple of ramp spells.
So it doesn't seem like there's that much, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Okay, well that kind of stinks, but hey, you know what? As the Magic multiverse continues, this card will only get better. Because I'm sure they will add more kicker spells as
It's true.
But there you go. Those are all of our commanders. Those are all of the new legendaries from the bust open packs set.
Right. There's 2 commander decks that was released concurrently with this set. We're going to do those at the end, but we're just going to go on to the regular set colored, like the regular cards that are not legendary creatures. That you've gotten through our largest section. We're going to go quicker through here because, we can't build around these ones. Well, yeah, I guess you sort of can, but they're not your commanders.
Right.
Starting with lands, we don't really have a lot. We're going to highlight one. There's a cycle, almost a cycle. There's 6 dual lands, but they're the modal dual phase cards. For example, this is Branch Loft Pathway or Boulder Loft Pathway. It can either be a green untapped land, not a forest, or a white untapped land, not a forest. You have to choose. And if you've chosen wrong, I hope you got to live with it.
Yeah, not too much to say about these. I think they're very good. I think, I don't know, not much to say about it. We got new rare 2-color lands, basically, and
but they end up being 1 color
slightly
when you
worse.
play with them.
Yeah, slightly worse, obviously, but I mean, I think still the value is there of being able to choose the color when you need it, so I think they're good. They're going to be too expensive at first, like they always are, and so I wouldn't rush out to buy them, but if you open a few, they're probably good to play in your decks. There you go. Let's move on to Colorless, because the other lands aren't, obviously they're on the back of a couple spells and stuff like that, like we've mentioned, but there's nothing else to talk about. So let's go to Lithoform Engine, 4-mana legendary artifact, some mythic, has 3 abilities. Pay 2 and tap it to copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So that is a Strionic Resonator, right?
Yeah.
Right there. So there you go, Strionic Resonator. Also activated though, because right. So it's like also kind of rings of whatever it's called there.
Of Bright Hearth.
Right, Rings of Bright Hearth, which is like an $80 card now.
Is it?
Something like that. 60, 80. I think 60 last time I saw. Anyways.
52.
So the Form Engine, though, that's not where it stops. That honestly would be good enough.
Yeah.
But no, there's 2 more abilities. Second one is pay 3 and tap it. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose 2 targets for the copy. Okay.
Fork costs 2. This is just one more than Fork.
That's right. And then pay 4 and tap it. Copy target permanent spell you control. So this is interesting the way this is worded. Copy target permanent spell you control. So you have to do this when it's on the stack. I really am like educated guessing that because that's just it's why it says spell there. But I think this is like pretty sweet. It has to be your own stuff, always.
Yeah.
It's all the stuff you control. But I mean, that's a small price to pay. That's a lot of modes for not that much mana. In that this thing only costs 4. Like you could do 4 and maybe even have a little left over for a triggered ability. If you're in some artifact deck where this triggers it even.
Do you think this will be a staple?
That is a good question. Here's the reason why I don't think it's a staple. Because, like, copy things aren't staples automatically, right? Like,
right.
I do, though, understand someone thinking, and they may even be right, that it is, because this can do what you want in any sort of deck, it seems like. Like, I can make more creatures from this. I can double my spells. I can take advantage of triggered abilities. So I think it's going to be like, what's the card that got banned? What's that card?
Oh, Paradox Engine.
Yeah.
Paradox
like Paradox Engine where it's, yeah, I think so. Where it's like really, really good, and it is a staple, as we say, but like really it's a mythic that's going to probably cost a bunch of money, and people call it
pre-selling for $25.
Yeah, like people are going to call it a staple, but it's like you're not going to. I don't know.
It kind of puts Riku to shame.
Yeah. I mean, Riku only makes the 2 only like it costs 2 more.
It's true. Riku's much cheaper.
Yeah, like Riku's cheaper for the spell and the creature side of it. But it's the fact that it's all on one card that makes it so good. Obviously, this is great. Like there's nothing bad about this card. It's just pretty sweet. It's just that you have to choose per tap. You have to choose what you're doing. I mean, like if we're talking about it being a staple, let's say you put this in like some creature-based deck. 4 mana, get this on the battlefield. Next creature you play, you're going to play 4 more to get double the creature, which may well be very good and all, but like that's it. Then you get now you got 2 of those creatures. Like how good is that though? You've paid 8 mana to add another creature that you just played.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more exciting for end of turn triggered abilities or things like that. I think that's where it's going to get used the most. It's interesting. If you run Strionic Resonator, I would be curious to look through the deck list and see what else does this help.
Activated ability seems the biggest, newest, flashiest part for me.
Yeah.
Where I now get to do that with my Planeswalkers. And obviously other activated abilities, which people love to do. So, yep. I think it's $25. It's gonna, I think you crack one, you put it in whatever deck wants it the most. But I think staple might be a little bit overstatement for this card. It's very good, but I don't think it just goes in every deck.
I agree.
Okay. What's next?
So next up we got Myriad Construct. It's a 4-mana 4/4 artifact creature construct, but it has kicker 3, and if it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each non-basic land your opponents control. Yeah. That gets very big.
That's a lot.
7 mana is a lot to spend, but I can think of a few decks I've brewed up that wanted large colorless creatures because of massive discounts or things like that. Kicker is an additional cost, so can that get discounted? I forget if kicker can get discounted. Yes, it can. So, it's possible to cheat this out in various ways and still be paying for the kicker cost. So this can be massive. The other part of it says when Myriad Construct becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it and create a number of 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens equal to its power. It's interesting to me. I don't know how to break it, but it's worth remembering if you're ever looking for gigantic colorless creatures to get massive discounts.
Yeah, listen, I'll tell you what. This is going directly in my Duretti deck. Coming back, bringing this thing back from, first of all, being able to
if you bring it back, it won't do anything.
No, but it's still the power. You're still losing. You're still getting 4 constructs out of it.
No, not if you just sacrifice it.
No, when it becomes the target of a spell.
What spell are you targeting with it?
I don't know, any of the spells that you have in your deck that you've built that you've included this in there. You know what I mean? Also, here's the thing.
You're looking at auras or giant growths, aren't you?
I suppose so. Maybe there's some other stuff you can do. Is it just spells? It is. It's not abilities. It would be sweet if it was abilities too. You're right.
Oh, sure.
But 7 mana, maybe the first time's enough though. You know what I mean? Maybe that's enough value out of it, because check this out. So let's say you've done a minimal amount of ramp and you can cast this on turn 5 or 6, right? So that's a 4-player game. That's potentially 15 lands out there around. Probably more, actually, because they're ramping too, probably. And let's say half of those are non-basics, which, again, it's probably actually more. So, let's say 8 of those lands. So you paid 7 mana for a 12/12 that when it gets targeted by something, you get 12 1/1 construct artifact creature tokens. That's all really good.
I'm just skeptical. Your opponents aren't going to target this.
No, then they got a 12/12 coming at them, and maybe you can make use of the fact that there's a big 12/12 or even bigger.
Yeah, I don't know. If it had trample, I'd be with you.
I think in a deck that wants. I feel like you got to care about the artifact side of it.
Yeah.
Just as a big creature, I think I'm with you. It's not good enough, but I think if you can even get this thing to create those tokens, it's very good.
That's the tricky part. Targeted by spell. It's hard to do.
It's a little trickier than it looks. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's not that good. Maybe it's not as good as I thought. Bummer. Why isn't it just a dice trigger? Let's go. Come on, right? Why make this extra weird? Okay, next we have Skyclave Relic, 3 mana artifact. It's indestructible. It says when Skyclave Relic enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 2 tapped tokens that are copies of it, and it taps for 1 mana of any color, and the kicker is 3. So you can pay 6, and you'll get 3 mana rocks that tap for any color, and only one of them enters the battlefield untapped.
I mean, I think this is this is worth considering for your 3 mana colorless mana rock slot. Mm-hmm. I do love Cultivator's Caravan, but I'm considering this one because you always get that one, which is true of all of them. But if I want, I have the choice of you know what? I've got the mana. I'll have 2 to keep going on later. They're all indestructible. And especially if I have any sort of metal craft or care about artifact count, I can make 3 artifacts all at once.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's good.
I do too.
Obviously replacing the Darksteel Ingot, that's for sure.
For sure, strictly better.
Yeah, this is just strictly better. So
yeah. I
mean, I agree. Yeah, you want a bunch of artifacts? Killer. You want a bunch of mana rocks? Killer. Great. You want just one? It's even pretty good still.
So that's it for colorless. Let's go on to some white cards. First up, Angel of Destiny, Mythic, 3, white, flying, double strike, 2/6. Whenever a creature you control deals combat to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. So on the surface, that sounds political. It's hey, can I attack you with this? We'll both gain life. Then the other part says, at the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 life more than your starting life total, each player, Angel of Destiny attacked this turn, loses the game. So now, with that context, you don't get to use this for political stuff, because everyone will be like, no way, because if you have a way to surprise gain life after this combat, I will be out of the game. So no, I will make 0 deals with you with Angel of Destiny. It's fun, but it's tough. It's tough to it's it's asking a lot.
Yeah, I don't like it. I think Felidar Sovereign is already a kind of oh, okay, whatever. You're gonna win the game because you have a bunch of life. It's this just makes it even harder to do that.
But I think that's what takes it away from the annoying thing of Felidar Sovereign, because you have to actually do something. If you kill me with Angel of Destiny, at least you did something. Whereas with Felidar Sovereign, it feels like you didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I still am well, whatever. You gained 15 life. Congratulations, you win the game, I guess. And you attacked with a creature.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't even have to hit. It's a 2/6 double strike. Like, okay, it's probably going to survive.
Oh, that's right. Each player agency attacked. I in my mind.
And it's not an automatic win, which is different too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
We could move on if you don't like it.
Yeah, I think we can move on. I don't know. I'm not impressed. Next is Felidar Retreat. 3 and a white for an enchantment with landfall. It says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose one. Create a 2/2 white cat beast creature token. Or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. Oh, yeah. Pretty good, man.
This is incredible.
Yeah, this is really good. I mean, we've had this is not a full cycle, right? Like in previous Zendikar sets, we saw or at least the last one, we saw a full cycle of these retreats. Were they all retreats? Yeah, and it was like, yeah, just each color had one and they did two things. This one is like a step up from those for sure, and I guess there's only the white one. But this is great, whether it's tokens you want to make or if it's giving +1/+1 counters to everything and they get vigilance. This card's really good.
Oh man, it's such a weird like they know what they're doing making this a white enchantment, because it's like if you're mono white, you hardly get to do this because mono white doesn't get to put a lot of lands out.
Yeah.
So like if you're just like, man, but this goes in any white green deck for sure.
Goes in the cat deck, of course, the white green cats. We all know about that one.
Here's another interesting move on Wizards' part. It's Farsight Adept. They're really trying to do card draw in white here. 2 and a white for 3/3. When Farsight Adept enters the battlefield, you and target opponent each draw a card. All right, you get to do the political stuff. So I get to draw one, but you get to draw one. I still don't think it would be unreasonable to let white draw a card and nobody else. I think that's a thing that is fair. Anyway, I mean, they're getting closer to it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess it's only good if there are more cards in white that have the text "draw a card" on it. So,
like I'm with you. I think this card is like fine. We're getting closer to it being good. I like that it's only target opponent draws one instead of everyone, like we've seen previously. But like, what's wrong with basically divination? I mean, that's kind of what this is because we get a 3/3 out of it. But obviously in Commander, it's not a big deal. But like, why couldn't it be like a spell where it's like, I don't know, we draw 3 cards and one opponent draws 1, or something like that? You know, I don't know. Anyway, so we're getting there. We're getting closer.
Okay, on to blue.
On to blue. This is one that's created a lot of discussion. Confounding Conundrum. 1 and a blue for an enchantment. It says when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield under their control this turn, they return a land they control to its owner's hand. Again, a lot of discussion. Obviously, this seems to just wreck people who are trying to ramp. You play Cultivate, and then you play a land, and if you cultivate, you gotta bounce a land back. So that's gonna hurt the green decks. Wow, it's tough for the green decks. There's also this thing of though that like it can, depending on when it comes down in the game, it can actually really help certain decks and certain certain lands that might have an ETB ability, or if something you're playing against has landfall. I think in Commander overall, though, this is just going to really hate on green decks.
Yeah, I mean, the only cool trick with it is to like Path to Exile someone on their turn after they've played a land with this out. So then like, well, man, you're supposed to get a drawback from Path to Exile. I guess it's in your hand. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. This is like I don't want to get too deep into the philosophy of it, but like Commander has that unwritten rule where for most of us, we don't play with land destruction. And that fundamental sort of social rule means that green will always have an advantage because that is how you punish green, right? Mm-hmm. Land destruction. Oh, you ramped to hunt? Well, too bad. Now they're all gone. It's like, well, we can't do that. So now you get to do that all you want. This is a card that's kind of to help with that isn't land destruction. I don't know. Maybe it would just be easier if we all started allowing a little bit of land destruction.
Yeah, I know, right? Like maybe it would be better if there's something that just lets someone destroy like 3 lands and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, and then it exiles itself and that's gone. I don't know. Like, Confounding Conundrum seems like, again, we talked about hate cards. It's like it's not our style to play these cards that hate on specific either colors or decks or whatever it is.
Well, okay, but what I don't mind about this one is that it doesn't actually stop anyone from playing Magic.
No, it doesn't. I agree. Yes.
So, like, you can still do 1 land a turn, which is normal. So, great. And the fact that it replaces itself means it's doesn't cost a ton of equity to just throw this in a lot of your blue decks and just see how it goes.
Does this just go in to all the blue decks? Because you're coming up against green.
Yeah.
You're coming up against ramp, and then
it
all of a
probably
sudden,
does.
Right? You have one player that has green in their deck, and all of a sudden this card's worth it.
Well, and like in your opening hand, turn 2, Confounding Conundrum, your go. It's like, okay, play my 3rd land. Don't play my Cultivate now. It's like, okay.
I will say this, green's going to have Enchantment Destruction at some point.
Yeah.
If you built a deck correctly, which you should.
It's
you
fair.
should have a lot of Enchantment Destruction. It's always a problem, right? So, I don't know. I certainly would hate to see this card if my deck was a landfall deck.
Right.
Whereas, like, if I'm just trying to ramp like a normal person and I just happen to be like a green-white deck, I'm going to be like, oh, man, come on. But I don't know. I don't think it's... I don't hate it, but I also don't love it. In that I'm not sure what I like, what it does to the game. But like you said, you still get to play. So it's not that bad. All right, what's next?
Oh, next up we've got a modal double face card that is a creature on one side or a blue land on the other side. It's Glasspool Mimic, 2 and a blue, shapeshifter rogue. It's a 0/0, then you may have it enter as a copy of a creature you control, except it's a shapeshifter rogue in addition to its other types. So clone is 3 and a blue, and it is any creature on the battlefield. For 1 cheaper, you only get to do creatures on your side of the battlefield, which is a huge drawback, but you're paying 1 less. But it's also one of these modal cards, so that's a bonus.
Yeah.
So I think by rate, this is very well costed for what it is.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it is a really major downside that it's only creatures you control, because you just want this always.
Right.
To be, like, I had one of these guys, in that mono blue clone deck I made, I had one creature in there that was like, copy something you control, but then it can bounce back. So it was like it was good. And then every time I drew that in every game I've ever played with that deck, I'm just like, I wish this could just copy something my opponents control. So
right.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, for 3 mana, I want to piggyback on what you've developed. I don't want to do my own work and then do more work like with Glasspool Mimic. But in those cases, it can just be a blue land. This is another tough one to evaluate where I'm just like, I guess I just throw it in a lot of blue decks because you never know if I'm
comparing this to clone isn't fair really, because there's a 1 and a blue creature that does this, and so it's like it costs 2 to do this normally. So it's actually.
But doesn't that one is an illusion though? That one you have to sacrifice if it gets targeted.
I'm talking. There's a 1 and a blue clone thing that can only become something you control.
Oh. Well then, never mind everything I said about the cost of this.
I'm pretty sure there is. Anyways, again, because when I was building that deck, it was like, ooh, cheap, but no, it's not good enough. It's still not bad though. Like if you build around this thing of like getting a bunch of, copying your own stuff. Obviously, this is good. This is really good. So I think you're just gonna need to find the deck for it. Next we have Thieving Skydiver, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Merfolk Rogue. It has kicker X, and X can't be 0. It has flying. It says when Thieving Skydiver enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. If that artifact is an equipment, you can attach it to Thieving Skydiver. Very cool. You basically get to attach a little steal spell onto it, and as Sean noted here in the notes, Soul Ring costs 1.
Yeah, right.
So 1 and a blue, 2 and a blue, get a 2/1 flyer and steal someone's Soul Ring. Yeah, man, no problem.
Yeah,
I'm in for that. And then, of course, there's the the added coolness of if you do grab someone's sword or Warhammer or something, you just automatically get it, and it gets to be attached. So that's fun. Love this card.
That's it for blue. Let's go to black cards. We've got first up. It's we're including this one, Nighthawk Scavenger. It's 1 black vampire rogue, 1+ star power and 3 toughness. It's got flying, death touch, lifelink. Surely everyone you can see that this is vampire Nighthawk, but it's got a variable power, and the power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. As long as your opponent's graveyards are not completely empty, this is at least Vampire Nighthawk, but possibly better than Vampire Nighthawk. It's a strict upgrade. Lots of decks run Vampire Nighthawk just for the sheer stats and cost, and I think this is 99% of the time an upgrade.
Yes. Yep. 99.9, because of even if it's a 1/3, it's basically the same, right?
I mean, with that death touch on there, exactly. What's the difference?
It doesn't matter. You just care about the death touch. Why was this not a 0/3? That gets the +1. I don't understand. Not that I want it to be that. I'm just saying, I think they could have done that and it still would have been really great. So anyways,
right.
So the 1+ is just cool. Yeah. I mean, not broken, but this is going to be able to get bigger. So I think actually it, just replaces Vampire Nighthawk in any of the decks that's running it. Next we have Lithoform Blight. This is an interesting one. 1 and a black for an aura. It enchants a land. When Lithoform Blight enters the battlefield, draw a card. Sweet. Enchanted land loses all land types and abilities and has tap, add colorless, and tap, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color.
Is that City of Brass?
That is City of Brass, yeah. City of
something like that.
Tap for the colorless too?
I don't know. I have a hard time.
What's it called? The other one, the new whatever. Anyways, so what a interesting card. It's a black card that lets us tap for any mana. That's wild.
And it lets us, and it also is an interesting way to hose opponents' utility lands. Because we draw the card and it takes away the utility of the land, but it doesn't destroy it. They still get to get mana out of it. But if it was like a land that lets them, tap, like a Maze of Ith, this is not bad to put on a Maze of Ith or a flipped Search for Azcanta.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, any of those Ixalan flip lands that become really good. The what's it called? The green one. The green
Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah, the Gaia's the new Gaia's Cradle, the new
sure.
Whatever, the Tolarian Academy too. Yeah, that's a good call. That's interesting. But also, of course, this fixes you in I guess your black X colors deck. It's very, very interesting, very cool. And it's an uncommon, so neat. Seems good to me. It doesn't add mana, it doesn't ramp you, but fixing you is pretty cool. So black gets that ability now.
It's an interesting option.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got a sorcery called Feed the Swarm. This is relevant because it's a 2-mana sorcery, 1 and a black, destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. This is the first time black can target an enchantment and destroy it. You lose life equal to that permanent's converted mana cost, so that's the price that it comes from. It's also destroy target creature. I mean, they're just starting to experiment with this in black, so I guess that's why it's not an instant. But in a mono black commander deck, it's so hard to get rid of enchantments. I think you have to run this in all your mono black commander decks.
And I don't think you're giving up that much to do it. I think it's because otherwise the ways you can handle enchantments are like those big like a what's it called, meteor golem, or
right,
the 3-mana rock that then taps for 7 and sack it and you destroy a permanent, right? Like those are the ways
those
you do it.
Both 7.
Exactly. You pay 7 mana for those things. This is 1 and a black, and it can hit creatures. If you're in a spot where you just want to kill a creature with this, you can. Yeah, you're going to lose some life, but I think it's an auto include in any mono black deck. Good thing it's a common. Great. I love it. Feed the Swarm. Next is red. We're going to move on here. And this one's a big one. 2 red. It's a mythic. 4/4 flying dragon called Leyline Tyrant. You don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. Big rules change there when Leyline Tyrant's out. When Leyline Tyrant dies, you may pay any amount of red. When you do, it deals that much damage to any target. So you're just saving up, just banking red mana. And
well,
then,
but it correct me if I'm wrong though. It does it go when a turn ends?
oh yeah, you're right. I guess sorry, you're right. Steps and phases. It's not, but when a turn ends, you would still lose it, right?
I don't know. Or is the turn merely when a phase, your end step, turns into someone else's
I know, you're
untouched
right. Okay.
step?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a very interesting question. You don't lose. Look up. Omnath, the original Omnath. What's it called? Omnath, Locus of Mana.
Yeah.
Because that would have kind of. I think that would kind of have the answer for us. You don't lose unspent green mana as steps and phases end. No. Okay. So
then this works too.
yeah. So this also works. So you get to keep it around forever. It's like the red Omnath. And then, you're just banking red mana until either you use it for some giant fireball or something like that, or you sacrifice your Leyline Tyrant and then you just murder someone.
Yeah.
Cool. This is neat. How much do you like breaking Magic's rules?
I love it.
Yeah,
That's why we play Commander.
Perfect. Then welcome to the family, Leyline Tyrant. You're going to see a lot of play, I feel like.
This one's interesting. It's Nahiri's Lithoforming X, red, 11X spell, sorcery. Sacrifice X lands. Okay. For each land sacrificed this way, draw a card. You may play X additional lands this turn. Lands you control enter the battlefield tapped this turn. So, like, I'm going to sacrifice the lands I, used to pay for this. And then I'm going to draw a bunch of lands, a bunch of cards that I get to put them down. So, like, I probably don't have a ton of mana left over, so I'm not going to be able to do anything this turn. This is really just for landfall triggers.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not even guaranteed the landfall triggers if you don't draw lands, right?
Right.
Yeah, interesting. I think this is very narrow, but like in the deck that wants this, like an Angry Omnath deck that also is running. I can't remember any card names. I've looked at so many cards. I can't remember. I start to all the other card names leave my mind.
Yep.
It's the green commander, the 5/3 that she makes 5/3 elementals when you sacrifice lands.
Yes.
Anyways,
Yes.
Nahiri's Lithoforming obviously loves that card and loves Angry Omnath altogether. So that's a deck I think is going to really want this card. On the small end, you pay 4, you sack 2 lands, you draw 2 cards. It's not great, but on the bigger end, you pay 6 mana, 8 mana rather. You do it for 6 lands, and then hope that you're definitely going to hit a few lands that way. Put them into play, draw some cards. I don't know. I don't think I like this outside of a deck that wants to sacrifice lands and or have landfall. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Because
It's awkward.
Because on the small end, it's not worth it really. It's like 4 mana divination where I have to sacrifice 2 lands and maybe not get them back. Like that's not good.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to green. Ancient Green Wardens here. 4 green for a mythic 5/7 elemental with reach. You can play lands from your graveyard, and if a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Hello, Omnath. Hello, Omnath's very good friend.
Yeah,
no matter which version you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. But also just on his own, this is a good card, man. Like,
yeah, now we've got a few ways to play lands from our graveyards. I hope we get even more.
Yep, agreed. This is a card I bet you is going to be worth a bunch of money. How much is it selling for already?
It's already pre-selling for $20.
There you go. Mythics. These are good mythics, though. There's a lot of breaking the main rules of Commander, or of Magic, rather, I should say. And
right.
When those happen, that those cards are going to go for a lot. So
here's a Wizards Thanks. It's a reprint. Lotus Cobra.
Ooh, Wizards Thanks.
Lotus Cobra was up to like $15. Jeez. 10 to 15. So it's pretty selling for 10. Anyway, we love a good reprint. Thank you, Wizards.
Yeah.
Love Lotus Cobra.
Yeah, Lotus Cobra. You want to read it?
Oh, sure. It's like in my mind, I was like, everyone knows Lotus Cobra.
Yeah.
It's a 2/1 for 1 and a green, and it has landfall. And whenever a land enters the battlefield, you get to choose a color, and you get a mana of that color. Yep. So if it's an untapped land, its entering gives you a mana, and then you can tap it for a mana. So those lands enter for 2. I guess that's when Nahiri's Lithoforming is pretty good, because you get the mana back as those lands enter.
Good call, yeah. Yeah, Lotus Cobra makes a lot of things good. It really smooths you out, it ramps you up. It's a good card, and we're real happy to see it reprinted, because we can get our little greasy palms on these things now.
Yep.
There we go. Okay. Scoot Swarm. Scoot Swarm? Scoot?
I like Scoot.
I like Scoot. Scoot Swarm. 2 and a green for a 1/1 insect with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. So it's making you insects. If we get up to the fact where we hit 6 lands, now we're making a creature that makes creatures. So it's like you're getting exponentially more, right?
Yeah. This card is explosive.
Yeah,
right?
It's very explosive.
Like so if you have a Skeet Swarm and you've got 6 lands and you cast Explosive Vegetation.
I guess it's not exponential, but it's still very good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because it'll double every time, because each one makes a copy now.
Oh, will double. Okay, then that is exponential. So I'm way off. Anyways, either way, this is crazy good. This is a lot of fun. Like,
yeah,
having a couple, like, once you add that 6, if you play like, one of those, like an Explosive Vegetation landfall thing, anything where you can drop a few lands, like, it just becomes wild.
But with Explosive Vegetation, the triggers go on the stack at the same time. Yeah, so it will keep doubling. Yeah.
So very cool. Scoot Swarm. It's a little callback to the old Scoot Mob,
right?
Which just used to be a little 1/1 that you'd add a bunch of counters on after like 5 lands or something like that. So very fun. Love to see a little callback.
So we already discussed the Balagid Recovery, the regrowth variant. So let's move on to Iridescent Horn Beetle, 4 and a green for an insect. It's a 3/4 to start. At the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each +1/+1 counter you've put on creatures under your control this turn.
Cool. So,
nice.
I love this is on your end step, eh?
Yeah, and they could have very easily said, like, if you got them, make 1 insect. But, like, for each +1/+1 counter. And we know that there are decks out there where your +1/+1 counters are doubling every turn, or, like, you're, like, doubling them on, like, different things like this. Like, decks that deal in +1/+1 counters put a ton on them.
You know what I love about this? I love that it works both ways.
Yeah.
I love that if I have this in like a green-white deck and I'm going wide and I'm using that retreat to whatever thing that we just saw, the white one, where I put, 5 +1/+1 counters all on my, like, each one of them on 5 creatures, that gives me 5 insects and I get to keep doing that. Or if I'm in like some green-blue deck and I made some big Hydra or something, it does the same thing.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love it.
I love this with Rayhan.
Yeah.
So you put the counters on somebody, and then Rayhan moves those counters over, and you get to double dip for them.
That's right. Yes. And again, love that it's on your end step. You don't have to wait till the next upkeep or something like that, where it's like counting or whatever. I think it's cool that you get them that turn, if it survives to the end of the turn, of course.
Okay, you know what? So there are no really standout multicolor cards. The Commanders, the Legendaries were sort of the ones we wanted to bring up. Mm-hmm. The major reprint was Lotus Cobra. We already covered that. And so the only thing left is Planeswalkers. And I think there's one Planeswalker that is pretty interesting. I'll tell you, because Commander Planeswalkers are tricky because they usually design them for standard. And they're hard to make work in Commander because they put a target on their back. Most people won't let you do them. They have to really give you a lot of value if you don't do much with them. But the newness is pretty significant. Nissa of Shadowed Boughs, 2 black green. Legendary Nissa, starts with 4 loyalty and has a landfall ability. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, put a loyalty counter on Nissa. So this is a rare occasion where Nissa can get more loyalty without just using abilities. So +1, untap a land you control. You may have it become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste and menace until end of turn. It's still a land. So that gets her up to 5, and her -5, her ultimate is, this is her only 2 abilities, you may put a creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Now, you can play Nissa for 4 mana, play a land, get her up to 5, and ultimate her right away. If you already, like, if the game has moved on and you've got 6 or 7 lands, you can potentially just pop out an 8-drop from your graveyard or your hand for the 4 mana that Nissa costs, as well as the landfall. If you can do tons of landfall, you can do that and keep Nissa around. So it's for this reason that I think she's worth putting in commander decks.
Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, good call. You get it right away.
You can.
You can. Yeah. I did include Nahiri here as well, but
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this it still is to be noted that it is just a 4 mana reanimate spell, which is not bad. Don't get me wrong. But like, you're not, I love Planeswalkers just like everybody else, but if you're doing that, you're not really getting a Planeswalker. You're just getting this pretty good, good reanimation spell. It's 4 mana and the 2 counters. Like, it is good. Don't get me wrong. So, but yeah, just heads up. We won't spend too much time on Nahiri, but I did want to just highlight her because I just want to be like. So two red white for the 4 loyalty Planeswalker. +1, you create a 1/1 core warrior creature token, and you can attach any equipment to it. -2, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a warrior or equipment from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So we get a little bit of card advantage going with this Nahiri in Boros, which I think is important to note. And then -3, which again, we can do right away. You can do this on the turn she comes down. She deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to twice the number of equipment you can control. So she is a little bit of a removal spell. So there's like making tokens, getting a little card advantage, and like, a bit of removal. Like, I think there's just enough there that it adds up to kind of like the Nissa, where it's like you're getting the value that you want the turn that you play her, whatever it is, right? Obviously, a 1/1 token isn't worth 4 mana, but that's how she kind of can maybe stick around after that one. Anyways, let's move on to these new commander cards. So that's the regular Zendikar set right there.
Yeah.
That's all the ones that we deemed worthy of talking about. Zendikar is an interesting plane. I do find that it is a little more narrow, don't you? Like, all of this landfall and kicker landfall is very narrow for commander, I think. And then kicker is like cool, but we don't really get to abuse it the same way we can do other stuff, right? Like, I can't, if a creature has a kicker ability, I don't get to like bounce it and like blink it and stuff like that. Like, I always got to pay for that kicker. So it's like, it's kind of like, it's kind of not as good in some ways, but anyway, so it's funny, but I think there are a lot of really neat cards in this set so far.
Sure. And now that we're talking about the commander decks that are being released with Zendikar, we get a new legendary and a couple of unique cards. The rest of the cards in them are reprints, if I understand correctly. So we'll just highlight the new stuff. So in one of the decks, we get N1 the Ruin Thief, 2 blue-black legendary vampire rogue. Other rogues get +1/+1. And N1 is a 2/4 to begin with. So this is a rogue tribal captain. You get all your rogues get a little bit bigger. And whenever one or more rogues you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If the player mills at least 1 creature card this way, you draw a card. Interesting.
Yeah.
So we obviously want to do this. It's an interesting tension because whenever one or more, so only rogues dealing damage does this. So you definitely want it in a rogue's tribal, but that's kind of obvious. That's what N1 wants to do. So you want to hit hard with a lot of things to do a lot of milling. Or I think you could also get away with just doing a little bit of damage and considering it card draw, because you might get a card from that. And I'm not trying to mill you out, but I'm just trying to draw cards that way. And hopefully my rogues have other when this creature deals combat damage triggers. Maybe that's what I'm going for instead.
Yeah. There's also a couple of cards that have come out in this set, and I think there was some in Ikoria as well, where or no, it was Eldraine, where it cared whether or not your opponents had like 8 or more cards in their graveyard.
Right.
Like
that's the rogue theme of the Zendikar.
Yeah. So like that's something to think about. It seems like tribal are always going to be a little narrow, and tying this to mill is even kind of more narrow. So it's interesting to, one thing that should be noted: Anawan's ability of drawing the card, it only matters if the rogues did it. Like if you have another way of milling, you won't draw cards from a creature going in the graveyard that way. So that kind of isn't great. But anyways, so let's take a look at one of the other new cards in here, starting with Enigma Thief. This is in the Anawan deck. 5 blue for a 5/5 Sphinx Rogue creature. It has Prowl coming back, 3 and a blue. Basically, you may cast this spell for its Prowl cost if you dealt combat damage to a player this turn with a Sphinx or Rogue. Interesting that they included Sphinx there, but yeah, this is a thing we've seen previously. Prowl's been only tied to Rogues, I think, before, so it included a Sphinx there. It has flying, and it says when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, return up to one target non-land permanent that player controls to its owner's hand. So everyone bounce something, and in this deck, you're probably going to be able to, like, if you're going towards rogues, you're going to be able to pay the Prowl cost on this, I'm pretty sure. A lot of rogues are unblockable, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. So for 4 mana, you get a 5/5 flyer that bounces stuff. That's not bad.
Yeah,
it's cool. If I'm building a rogue deck, I'm looking at including this, I think.
They've given us a piece of equipment. I think this might be the most exciting card out of this commander deck. Whisper Steel Dagger, 2 and a black for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, and it equips for 3. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a creature spell from that player's graveyard this turn, and you may spend mana as though or mana of any color to cast it. Very cool ability. I get to dip into your graveyard if I do combat damage to you. I like it.
Yeah. It's like 3 mana to cast, 3 mana to equipped. You're probably not going to be able to do it the turn you cast this, which kind of sucks. But it is repeatable, so I like that. And again, like we said, like on a rogue, you're getting in with this.
Yeah,
it's cool. Let's talk about the other deck. It's a Naya deck, and it's helmed by Oboon. Oboon, Mull Daya Ancestor, 1 red, green, white. It's a legendary elf spirit. It's a 3/3. And it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and haste until end of turn, where X is Oboon's power. It's still a land. And it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 encounter on target creature. So you can choose to animate a land at the beginning of combat. It becomes like a 3/3, and then you can use that landfall ability to pump Oboon, which will then in turn make your land creature bigger every time you animate it and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's, both of these commanders are like a little underwhelming. You're kind of looking at them and you're like, oh, I get to draw a card. Oh, but it has to be rogue. Oh, and it's mill. Ooh, okay, all right. I see where you want me to go here. Same thing with this. It's like, okay, I get it. Landfall, right? Okay, single +1/+1 counter. I got to animate lands too. It's like, oh, okay, well, I don't know. I don't love animating lands normally because it just leaves them open,
makes them vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like, to think that, like, I'm not sure if this is the new way they're doing commander decks. Are these in addition to the yearly commander releases? Or like, will we get a few of these every major set? That's an interesting thing. I don't have the answer to that, but it is a stark difference. These commanders are fairly underwhelming, whereas usually when we do the annual commander releases, we get busted in half commanders that like do things that are like have never been done before.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the delta between them is massive.
Yeah, agreed. I think, and I only watched Jimmy and Josh do theirs. I don't know where this one was spoiled actually, although they do mention it in that video. They talked about it, and again, they didn't know for sure either at the time, but they said that it seemed like they were replacing the Planeswalker decks that you usually see off the top of any given set. So,
well, those are very low powered, so this makes a lot more sense to me.
And it seemed like maybe even like in the same places like the Brawl decks, like instead of like getting people into Commander through Brawl, they're just like, you know what, let's just make Commander decks, and it's all reprints except for these 3 cards. So they're definitely lower powered, and I think as a result, and this is from Jimmy and Josh's video, that it seemed like they were going to make them cheaper. They suspected.
Well, you know what? Like, I'm looking through the deck list of Anawan. There's some very cool reprints in here, like cards that like got a little expensive, like Consuming Aberration, Ogre, Slumlord, Gonti, the original Lazav. Like, there's some value in this.
Una's in there, I think. Sig,
Una,
Cutthroat,
in Garrick's Wake. Like, they didn't pull any punches here. Like, these are like real decks. So it seems.
Let's finish these 2. Let's get these next 2 Oboon. You read the next card from the Oboon deck, and
okay.
I'll look up what's in there.
Well, I hope we're not going to get let down. I hope these are good. 2 white, 3/4 Cat Beast with Vigilance. Landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, exile target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard. And when Trove Warden dies, put those into play under their owner's control. Huh. So it's like delayed Sun Titan. It has to die to get the effect. That's pretty neat. With a ton of landfall triggers, you can really... Oh. Wait a minute. Exile target permanent card. So if I could get a copy of this somehow and like start putting lands from my graveyard under the first one, when it dies, all those lands come into play, and then the second one triggers more and just do more things there. There's the potential to really loop some stuff around.
Interesting. Okay, I'm looking at this deck list. Okay, let's read the last thing, and then we'll mention the deck list real quickly before we go. But the last card in this, the last new card for this deck is Geode Rager, 4 red for the 4/3 elemental with first strike, and it has landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, goad each creature target player controls. We know someone on this podcast who loves goad.
That's great.
Yeah, Sean loves a goad creature, and this is great. Yeah, 4/3 first strike. I mean, that's whatever kind of for 6 mana, but that goad landfall ability is fantastic. You're just going to be able to make someone turn their stuff sideways and get in there. So I like this. This might be my favorite card from including the commanders, to be honest. 6 mana is a little bit for it, I think, but goad's a powerful ability. So I like these new cards. I don't personally, I'm not super excited about the decks themselves. I'm not, I'm excited that we're getting some reprints that are going to be, the cost is going to go down on some good commander cards. I like that. But as far as the actual, even the actual commanders themselves, I'm not, to be honest, I'm not super excited about them.
I am excited about these decks. Like they're precons. They're not meant to be crazy powerful.
True.
But at first glance, I obviously haven't played with these. They're not out yet. I haven't shuffled them up and looked at them. But looking at them, honestly, the precons that they give us now, I look through them and I'm like, there's at least 10 duds in here that I'm just like, why is this card even in here? But all these cards are like, yep, that's good, that's good, that's good. Are there better versions of those cards? Sure. But like these look very playable and they could probably keep up.
Maybe it's the green mage in me, which I am, but I think this Naya version is way better. That might just be, again, that might be my own biases. But
Naya is better than the Dimir?
I don't know. It looks that way. Again, I'm sure someone who really loves playing blue-black decks might disagree with me. But here's, for both things, they do both include Arcane Signets and Soul Rings.
Yep.
So that's really good.
Yep.
In the Naya deck, you're getting Omnath, Locus of Rage, which I think is like I think that card's up to, I don't know. It's up to some higher amount of money than it should be, I think.
The basic lands are also very gorgeous.
Oh yeah, do you get the full arts in these?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's sweet. That's nice.
This is a good product. This is a very good product.
Oh, and there's also 2 cards. So there's technically 5 new cards. There's 3 brand new ones for these sets, but there's also 2 that come from the Zendikar Rising set itself, that are not like, that are not going to be new once the set has come out, right? So
yes.
Right. But you get a command tower in here. I mean, not that card's super expensive anymore, but yeah, you get some good, like you get some solid reprints here.
Harmonize, these are, there's good cards in here. They didn't give you pure garbage.
And thank God.
Yeah.
You get a Kadama's Reach, in this one. You get a Harrow. Not those cards are expensive, but it's just nice that they've included these good landfall cards. Like, these are the ones we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Did we get any interesting lands other than, we didn't get any fancy lands? I mean, you get a Myriad Landscape,
Myriad Landscape. Yeah, that card creeps up. That card gets up to $5. So they gave us those.
You get nice art on this Terramorphic Expanse. You get the Jumpstart art on the Terramorphic Expanse, it looks like.
Yeah.
So anyways, so I mean, if these decks end up being a little cheaper, that's major bonus. And if there's if they're still the $50 or $60, I mean, I think they're kind of just the same. But you don't get as many new cards, which is kind of a bummer. So we'll see. But there you have it. That's it. That's Zendikar Rising. That's the Commander. That's the regular set. That's all the stuff that matters for Commander. I think I'm happy to get those 10, even though they're a little simpler than you might expect. I think they're fun. I think they're fun 2-color commanders. It's nice seeing Tazri. It's nice seeing Omnath. I'm
old pals.
Yeah, I like it. I'm happy. I'm happy to see this.
Yeah, let us know how you are gonna brew with those modal double face lands.
Yes, exactly. And talk about, are they replacing lands? Are they replacing spells? What's your ratio look like? That's a big question that we spent the first chunk of the show on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Remember to check out TCG Player if you're outside of Canada, because you can use our affiliate link and purchase cards, whether it's from the new set here, Zendikar Rising, or perhaps it's from the new Commander decks. Maybe it's from one of our old decks that we've brewed here. Follow the link. It will be to our most recent deck that we've made there, but then you can go anywhere else on the site, and it still helps us if you buy any cards from the site from there. Also, if you're inside of Canada, though, you gotta go to the Wizard Tower. wizardtower.com. Please use our affiliate code, our special coupon code, and you'll get a slice off any singles you order from there. Get in on there, pre-order some of those Zendikar Rising cards, or I guess order them now. They're coming out pretty soon. So great stuff, guys. Thanks for listening. It's a long one. We appreciate it all the time, and we'll be back here next week with a brand new deck tech for you. We'll see you then.
Bye. Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCG Player affiliate link below.
That helps us out too. And for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.